population did not participate in the decision-making to send troops to Afghanistan, and it was indoctrinated by the media. Again, there are differences in totalitarian Soviet Union and democratic Canada, but outcomes are pretty much the same. Split in public opinion on war mixed with some degree of indifference and apathy. I saw it back there, I see it now. And my favorite one is slogan, support our troops. I heard it many times in many contexts, and I hear it now. Another one, and you can help me on this one. During the 10 years of Soviet occupation in Afghanistan, there was not even a single case of a family member of high-ranking government official, particularly those who made decision to send troops to Afghanistan and around them. So no family member ever served in Afghanistan. I'm still trying to find any mentioning of somebody in Canada, somebody, I don't know, cousin or some distant relative or people who made this decision who is fighting in Afghanistan. Maybe I failed to find this information. Do anybody knows such case? Could you raise your hand, please? Okay. Well, the point overhead, yes, it's the same throughout the history. And you probably know it, that people who are making decisions about starting wars or participating in them, they usually don't keep themselves or their family members in mind as the ones who would be implemented those policies. Media, very interesting topic for research for anyone. There are some minor principal differences, and for example, in Soviet Union in the beginning of the war, there was virtually no coverage on casualties. But so families were not allowed to write on their gravestone. So it was reflecting government policies. So it does the same here pretty much. So there are minor differences on principle, but Canadian media coverage in Afghanistan is virtually identical, again in principle, to the Soviet one. And here is the similarities I see. The most crucial similarity is that Canadian media is not asking the most important question. What right do we have to be in Afghanistan in the first place? It is taken for granted that whatever we are doing it for right reason. There is some kind of international legal basis for that. And again, there are differences in details and the historic background, but it's pretty much the same mentality set. And media doesn't challenge that. Media merely repeats government's party line without really investigating and challenging it. Essentially, media functions as a tool of propaganda in both countries. Media is promoting Islamophobia. I didn't see any meaningful coverage on Muslims or Islam other than, like, muted statements that not all Muslims are bad, like there are good guys, but, and so, again, I'll leave it up to you to judge this kind of coverage. There is no meaningful media coverage on the other side of conflict, just like in the Soviet Union. So there's no coverage on armed resistance, regular Afghans, innocent civilians who are killed by us, and again, it's taken for granted that they're bad guys, we're good guys. Not keeping count of Afghans killed by occupying forces. Again, media adopted that shameful, in my opinion, horrible term, collateral damage. And again, there is no challenge. Reducing debate on Afghanistan to essentially two questions. First question is, how are we doing? Are we succeeding or are we winning or losing? That was the only discussion in Soviet media. The second question was, well, are we supporting our troops or not? So, and media kind of divides people in these two categories, which is completely meaningless argument. Media doesn't challenge government gag orders on troops or a ban on covering funerals of wounded. When I was trying to get my story out, I spoke to one of the people in CBC, and I suggested this idea. I said, you don't have to cover me. Please do coverage on, say, Canadian wounded guys. Where are they? What are they thinking? And his response was that media is not allowed to military hospital in Ontario. They're most wounded soldiers undergoing treatment. But again, virtually I see no coverage. In fact, Soviet media did much better. You could find images of soldiers struggling to learn how to work on prostheses and this sort of thing. Like, I don't see it here at all. Like, maybe I missed it, but I don't know. Maybe you can find it. And the most important similarity, this whole framework of discussion in media. So the most information that comes from embedded journalists, which is basically a phenomenal totalitarian system, who talk at great lengths about difficulties and sacrifices of our soldiers and our Afghan allies. It was the same in the Soviet Union. While making no real attempt to understand Afghans in general and insurgency specifically. Like, it's not even conceivable you would try to understand people who are fighting you. So I observed the same approach in 1980s in the USSR, and for those of you who read the article in Focus magazine, you probably saw some quotes which were given, like one of them, for example, it's from the Soviet newspaper Izvestia. Bandits attacked the buses with workers, blew up college and the clinic in a village, publicly executed teachers, and stuff like that. It's virtually quotes from Canadian media. Media's focus on Afghans is limited to those whose lives were positively affected by our presence, while basically ignoring Afghans who were damaged or destroyed by our side, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Usually news on Afghanistan and Canada, like in Soviet Union, is buried somewhere in the back of a newspaper, like in the back pages. It's enough to look at today's paper and see where coverage on Francisco Juarez is in the page 4. After huge photo of internet gambling guy, and after a very meaningful discovery that after all Napoleon died from a cancer, he was poisoned. It was very important for modern Canadian society to discuss it. And then it comes a small thing. Again, I mean, media is a system. It's like hospital. When you come to hospital, well, basically in some cases, Canadian media outdid its Soviet counterpart. My favorite quotes are from CBC Radio that Taliban occupied territories. Again, images of wounded and suspected Taliban fighters when we talk about people we are killing. We don't even know whether they are fighters or not. So I'll leave it up to you to make your conclusions. You can go to the library, open newspapers for those of you who read Russian, or compare it to coverage by Western papers to back 80s and see the difference. What was? Thank you.
I'd do anything for you, dear. Anything for you, mean everything to me. I know that I'd go